Hey guys, welcome to another accounting video with the financial controller. This is Bill Hanna here, a licensed CPA in the great state of New York, and I've been in the accounting field for the last 16 or 17 years, but who's counting? It doesn't matter. In this video, I want to share with you how to turn the trial balance into a balance sheet. And the reason why I'm very excited for this topic is because this is one of those foundational topics in accounting, like understanding debits and credits and how the data flows from business transactions all the way to the financial statements, which is something that we explain here on this channel and also my online course, The Controller Academy. Go ahead and check that out as well. But if you understand all of these things, there is no stopping you in your accounting career. All right, here we go. And as a bonus for watching and learning from this video, go ahead and download the Excel file that I'm going to be working with in this video. It's going to be in the description box below. Go ahead and download it so you can play with it and see how I manipulate the data. So we're going to be following 7 easy steps to create the balance sheet from the trial balance. Number 1 is to close the financial books and records. 2, download the trial balance. 3, identify the balance sheet accounts on the trial balance. 4, check that the debits equal the credits. 5, label the accounts on the trial balance. And then 6, use sum if formula. 7, check that your assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. And as a quick reminder and recap on how the data flows in the financial system. So let's take a look. The flow of data, right? So the business transactions get recorded in the form of journal entries. That's the debits and credits. So as you see in this example here, you have cash going out for $1,000 to buy computers, and computers will go up by $1,000. And then these journal entries get then recorded in the general ledger. The general ledger, one for each account, it records the business transactions in each one of the general ledger accounts. So you have one for cash, one for trade receivable, for salaries, computers, etc., etc. These are the general ledger accounts. And then once you have these transactions recorded in a general ledger, you then take the ending balance of each of the ledger accounts and you summarize that in what we call the trial balance. So a trial balance will be a summary of all of the accounts with the ending balances and the debit balances or the credit balance in each of the accounts to double check that our debits are going to be equal to our credits. And then once we have the trial balance, we can go ahead and create the financial statements, which is what we're doing today. We're taking a trial balance and we're using it to create the balance sheet. All right, let's do it. All right, so we're doing really well. Now we understand how the business transactions flow to the financial statements. Okay, now let's talk about the 7 steps to create the balance sheets from the trial balance. Okay, so we said step number 1 is to close the books and records. And I made a video a while back on how to close the books and records. I'm going to leave a link to it up here, but it's also explained in extreme detail in my Controller Academy online course. Go ahead and check it out. But the basic idea is that you come up with steps that you will do at month end to make sure that you captured all of the business transactions throughout the months, and you come up with steps to close the books and create the accruals or the adjustments necessary so that you feel comfortable that you captured all of the business activities in the month. All right, so moving on to step number 2. Now that you've closed the books and records, step number 2 is to download the trial balance. Let's go ahead and download it from QuickBooks. So once I'm logged into QuickBooks, I'm going to go under Reports. And I saved here in custom reports a trial balance report for Q1 2022. But if you want to go ahead and get it from the standard reporting, you would just type in the name in the report search, trial balance, and basically put in the dates that you want. So I'm going to put in from Jan 1 because I'm trying to do Q1 of 2022. So Jan 1 till March 31st. And then I'm going to click Run Report. All right, here's my trial balance. So now that I have it in QuickBooks, I can go ahead and download it in Excel. There will be a button here on top that says Export to Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and then I'm going to open it in Excel. All right, so here's my Excel file with the trial balance. And again, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link to this Excel file down below so that you can see how I worked and taken the trial balance into a balance sheet. But pretty much it will be a listing of all of your balance sheet accounts. So balance sheet accounts are going to be the assets, which are the numerical values of the account numbers, usually begin with a 1. Right? This is most typical in companies. You'll find that begin with a 1. And then the second set of accounts is going to be for the liabilities. Usually it will begin with a 2. So we have from accounts payable all the way down to accrued vacation. And then the equity accounts typically begin with a 3. So these are all the equity accounts. And then from there, you have revenue accounts beginning with a 4. And then costs, these are going to be cost of goods or cost of sales, the 5 serious accounts. And then the 6 accounts are going to be all of the other operating expenses. Okay, so going back to the accounts here. So pretty much the accounts that we're going to be concerned with are going to be the accounts from the 1, beginning with 1, down to the accounts that begin with the digit 3. And this is a really nice segue into our step number 3, because step number 3 says that we need to identify the balance sheet accounts on a trial balance. Okay, so we just said that the balance sheet accounts are going to be those accounts that begin with number 1, 2, and 3. This is most common in most companies, but as a check, I would take a look also and glance over the other accounts to double check that the other accounts are non-balance sheet accounts. And for the most part, you'll see that the other accounts are going to be revenue. These 5 accounts are going to be cost of sales. The 6 accounts are all operating expenses, but you can take a look through them just to double check and make sure. All right, so now we're moving on to step number 4, which is going to be to check that our debits equal our credits. And again, the accounting software will always warn you if your debits are not equal to your credits in any journal entry recording. But just for sanity, we'll go ahead and check that our debits are equal to our credits. So we can insert a row right here. And we'll say sum. And we'll call it total balance sheet. And the sum and the credits. Now, as you can see, the total on the credit side is different than the debit side, and the difference between them is equal to this minus debits is 1.563 million. Okay, so this number is going to be the plug for retained earnings. And just to double check and verify that this is the number for retained earnings that we have to plug, we'll go back to QuickBooks and generate a balance sheet just to double check that this number is retained earnings. So going back to QuickBooks. So in QuickBooks, if I go to reports, I have the balance sheet saved for Q1 right here. All right, so take a look down here under equity, retained earnings, 1.563, which is that same exact number if we go back to the Excel file. All right, so in Excel, I can see that my difference is the same number, 1.563, which is the retained earnings. So I'm just gonna leave a note here that this is retained earnings. Okay, so now I can go ahead and move on to the next step. All right, so now that I know that my debits equal my credits, with the difference being retained earnings, which is the plug, now I can go ahead and move on to step number 5, which is going to be to draft the balance sheet and label the accounts on the trial balance. Okay, so I have a tab here for the balance sheet, and again, you can download this Excel file from the description box. The balance sheet tab, what I'm going to have here is the basic construct of a balance sheet, which is going to be current assets, having cash, accounts receivable, prepaid, unbilled revenue. I can either download this from online. There are many places where you can download like a basic construct of the balance sheet, or you can download the last known balance sheet for this company here, Spa Booker, and really have the accounts listed here one by one. So I'm going to go ahead and label these accounts in a trial balance, so I can go ahead and create a sum F formula. So I'm going to copy this and paste it on a trial balance tab. All right, now I can begin labeling my trial balance account. So I'm going to create a column here for label. And I can go ahead and begin labeling these things. So Chase checking account has a balance of $1.7 million. I know this is cash, so I'm going to get the word cash and paste it on the label. So then when I run a sum of formula, I can grab all of these balances. The next one is going to be accounts receivable. So I'm going to grab here, I have accounts receivable net. I can paste that in here. Next one is allowance for doubtful accounts. Well, that's going to be the same thing, right? Because accounts receivable net is really the net of accounts receivable minus the allowance for doubtful accounts. All right, so now that I labeled all of my accounts in a trial balance with a label that corresponds to a line item on the balance sheet, I can go ahead and create a sum F formula that creates my balance sheet. So I can go here under cash and say equals sum F label matches cash, and SUMIF debits. And I can go ahead and format it, $, and now I have my cash balance. If I drag it down, it's gonna grab my accounts receivable net. I can verify that by saying, okay, accounts receivable, but I have here allowance. Allowance is sitting on the credit side. Okay, so the SUMIF needs to grab the number from the credit side. So I'm gonna go to the SUMIF formula and say, add a part with it that says minus SUMIF. Do the same thing again. The label matches accounts receivable, and then the credit side is my array. Okay, so now the net balance of accounts receivable is going to be the 287 minus the $5,000. That's 282, and that's the balance for accounts receivable. Retained earning is going to be the plug that we talked about, the 1.5 million. So that's going to be linked to that, and that's going to be our retained earnings, which pretty much is a net loss. In this case, this company has been losing money, not accumulating any profits, but rather losing money. And now let's do our subtotals for the liability side. So total current liabilities is going to be the sum of these items. This is a subtotal. And then we have total equity. It's going to be the sum of these items here. And then we have our total liabilities and equities. All right, and now we're going to do the final step in our process, which is to check that the assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. So we can do here a check. We'll just write the word check, totals, and we're going to say equals assets up here minus total liabilities and equities. And there is a difference. The difference should be 0, but there is a difference of 152,684. Now, the easiest way to figure out what this difference is to find the number that matches 152K in our numbers here. So there is deferred rent of 152K, and we made a mistake by listing it twice. So there's deferred rent listed twice on a balance sheet, so we just need to remove one of them. And now our difference is 0. Liabilities plus equity equals our total assets. The difference is 0, and now we have a balance sheet ready to go from the trial balance. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and download this file from the description box below, and I'll see you in the next video.